Hey everybody. One thing that I feel like Christianity overlooks quite a bit is the historical context of a particular passage. And what I mean is they don't go back and think about the fact of, in a historical sense, how does a particular passage apply. Uh, Recently, I was having a discussion with someone, and they ascribe to the Trinitarian belief. And so I presented Isaiah 44:24 to him, which I commonly do, because to me it's kind of a passage. You just get straight to the point. I can find out real quick if a person is ready to deal with particular passages and be honest about them or not. Um, so in presenting the verse, I ask, how can three persons claim to create the universe when Isaiah 44:24 plainly states that Yahweh did it by himself and alone? Straightforward passage. And in response to that, he begins to quote various New Testament passages, all passages that would not have even been written or heard of or thought of for 700 years after Isaiah wrote his particular book and this particular passage. So I asked him, how can you explain a passage that was written 700 years prior to all the passages that you're using to explain? And what I mean is, okay, Isaiah writes his passage, and then 700 years later comes Christ and Paul and Peter, whoever else, John, all the people that he's using to explain Isaiah 44:24. Now, those passages in no way explain Isaiah 44:24 in a Trinitarian standpoint. But that would be a whole nother video. The point I'm trying to make in this video is any common Christian out there that's listening or watching this video, ask yourself a question. If you're going to use New Testament passages to explain the Old Testament, then the natural question should be, did the Jews have this passage available to them to try to understand it in the way you do? Because, for example, Isaiah 44:24, the Jews understood that to be only the Father created. There was no Son, there was no third person, the Holy Spirit. As a matter of fact, the Holy Spirit and the Spirit of Yahweh, the Spirit of the Father, it's all the same thing. And that's the way they understood it. So you have to ask yourself, did the Jews worship a false God? Because they didn't have John 1:1 or Philippians 2:6 or any other passage that deity of Christ believers feel explain how Jesus can be God. Those passages don't make Jesus God at all. But again, that'd be a whole nother video. But really think about it. They can't mean that, because if those passages in fact mean that Jesus is God, then now you have a problem, because now you're basically admitting that the Jews, all those centuries prior to these passages being written, worshiped the false God, because they didn't have John 1:1, they didn't have Philippians 2:6 or any other passage that Trinitarians use today to show that Jesus is God. They didn't have any of that. So that would be my question. How do you use New Testament passages to explain the Old Testament when those passages weren't even available to the very Jews who knew the God that they worshiped? Well, anyway, I hope everybody's doing well out there. Until next time, shalom.